This has a disastrous impact on the economy. This is a massive blow to the solar plexus of the economy.
We've been at this for hours. The public has lost their internet, their phone, cascaded to their power, 10, 11 million people, and they haven't heard from the president. So I would suggest two things. One is that we make a hard and fast decision that no matter what we know, that we push back on the president and say he's got to go out within the next hour, hour and a half, because that will force all of us to do what we need to do here to give some sense of confidence. The second question is, we haven't talked at all, but we've got to bring the Hill leadership down to the White House. This is politically, it doesn't matter what we do. If they don't feel involved, this will kill us, even if we solve this.
We've been talking around this table about utilizing some pretty extraordinary authorities. The Secretary of Homeland Security has said we're in communication with various industries, but that communication has to be very different if we're going to fix this. It has to be directive. And I know the cyber czar over here is telling everyone that we have authority, but we really don't. So we should, I mean, you know, you don't have to sign it, I do. So let's get real about this. So what I would say to Councilor Lockhart is let's take advantage of asking the Hill leadership to come down and let us all join arms around the solutions here. I think it's incumbent upon us to say, here are the things we're going to do. There is no rule book for this, and we need your help and support in dealing with this emergency. I cannot believe that Congress would balk at that given these circumstances, but you cannot leave the president by himself acting with these kinds of extraordinary powers that I think are called for here.
I think we just need to understand is while we're talking, 85% of the critical infrastructure in this country is owned by the private sector. And if you think they're waiting for us to tell them what to do, that's like not true, right? So they're doing stuff and they're moving to protect their own assets, not waiting for us. We're going to have to adjust based on additional data that comes into us on what the private sector is doing to protect their own assets, which may not necessarily be something we want or consistent with what we want.
Well, would they want it, or do we have a way to find out if they would be interested in having National Guard or federal troops protecting their critical transmission stations and, you know, critical fuel depots? I mean, can we check that and get a response so we know what their reaction is?
We are in touch with the utilities with respect to that. But it must be, keep in mind again that we've got over 3,000 utilities, each of which operates its own generation and own transmission systems. So it must be a local, coordinated nationally to be sure, but a local solution to this problem.
What concerns me in this case here is that it's gone beyond just malware. It's the IED attacks on the power stations, which shows that somebody is more than just a malicious hacker necessarily. It sounds like it's more of a coordinated effort to actually take our ability to run a nation and our economy down.
I appreciate that a lot of this is in private hands, but I want to put an issue on the table because we have the communications failure. That feeds rumors. We have the power issue. That feeds fear. We have the IEDs, and I'm sure that word will get around. I think we are rapidly approaching a place where the American people would have a serious question about the ability of the president and the government to defend the country. And that's why I want to raise the issue whether there is an argument in favor of simply putting everything we have in the military domain out there, whether it is National Guard or regular military troops, that we put them in cities to make sure we don't have disorder and violence. We put them in critical infrastructure. If necessary, we federalize the Guard if the governors don't want to go along with it. Do we need to make a full court press to the Secretary of Defense? Do we have the capability to do it? Can we move them, and are they trained to do it?
First of all, we can do this. We have plans in place to do it. I would recommend we do it as a preventative nature and with strong coordination with local authorities under the whatever title we have to do it in. But yes, we can do it.
So I'm going to ask our cyber coordinator, what do we do with respect to stopping the problem and preventing it from getting worse and then restoring power from a cyber standpoint? Are you connected up with the power industry? Do they get it from a cyber standpoint?
DHS has connections into the sector. with the Secretary of Energy for coordination in precisely this sort of circumstance. The long-term solution is to reduce the amount of connection to the internet that they have become dependent on for their control systems. I think we're going to have to take a close look at this smart grid and make sure that we've built some security into it, because I'm not sure we have.
But keep in mind that the physical assets have not been harmed. The generators are still there. The wires are still there. It's a question of being able to bring them back online, which will take a matter of days, not weeks.
But frankly, a message from the President that we've got hundreds of different utility companies and they're all working hard and they're coordinating to get stuff up, so be patient for a few days, strikes me as not the most comforting and appealing message.
We're trapped a little bit in how we normally deal with a crisis, because it's the opposite here. Our normal crisis is we get some intel, and the last thing you'd want to do is tell the public, and you want to deal with it surgically. This is the exact opposite. This is a crisis where the public's impacted more than we are as the government. We're all still working. We're still communicating. They know it's a crisis. So what we need to do, and what everybody in this room will be judged on, and trust me, you'll all be judged when this is all over for years to come, is did we carve out every absolute option, every piece of power we had? So the fact that we're, I'm getting messages from governors on, whether they don't want the National Guard federalized. Too bad. We need to, because again, where we'll be judged is we don't know enough to know what the solution is. So we have to have solutions across all platforms. So I don't think we should be debating whether we federalize the National Guard. The President should say, we are federalizing it, if that's the right policy. We have to explain that we have a crisis, acknowledge there's a crisis, and in a crisis you take extraordinary steps. The government has a responsibility, the private sector has a responsibility, the public has a responsibility. The President needs to articulate what he's doing as the government. The President needs to say, here's what I've told the private sector to do, and then the President needs to say, here's what I expect the public to do, and that's how we'll get through this.
Yeah, Fran.
One additional fact that everyone should be aware of is, of course, you understand hospitals have backup generators. Those backup generators run on diesel. When you're talking about not having access to refined petroleum, you're going to wind up, those hospitals are only going to be able to run those generators for 6 to 12 hours. This isn't sit tight for 3 days. People after about 12 hours are going to start dying in hospitals. And so you not only have the public safety, but you now have a public health issue.
Ahead, scrambling to restore the nation's power supply.
Let me just put on the table here, unaccustomed as I am, that you may have to nationalize the power companies because we can't have this.
This program is a simulated exercise.
This isn't sit tight for 3 days. People after about 12 hours are going to start dying in hospitals.
Should we be talking about allocating diesel fuel and other kinds of fuel on a necessity basis and start basically some kind of a rationing system?
I think you're going to have to until you can be sure that you get supply back and restore supply. But that's going to, you're talking about some very difficult public policy choices.
Well, can we do that? Can we ration?
You can, and you can have the National Guard help with delivery.
I think we need to set up a national interagency command center that starts responding to these things, and we should start looking for international assistance as well.
What we ought to do in the next 24 hours is get the best intelligence we can from our utilities, from our Department of Defense, et cetera, to determine how long they think this crisis will last. If we think we can bring electricity back online within a matter of 2 or 3 days, that is one thing. It is quite another if we think this is a very long and drawn-out procedure.
But
I tend to think it will be a short-term
procedure. If this is a cyber attack, we don't know the answer to that.
Yes.
So we have to assume, if this is someone in Russia, if this is, again, someone in someone's basement causing this, we have to assume that they are trying to cause harm. We have to assume that they have the ability to attack again and in a different place.
So let me tie this back.
So we can't get, I don't think we can get constrained with our answers to, we think this is 2 or 3 days. We don't know. We have to plan for the worst and work back.
Yeah, let me tie this back.
Could I add one other thing
John.
here? The utility company that controls the emergency generating power at the National Security Agency has just made a decision to divert that energy for its commercial customers. So let me just put on the table here, unaccustomed as I am, that you may have to nationalize the power companies because we can't have this.